So with that being said, let's actually jump into creating one of these so you can see exactly how it works, the functionality. Then we'll download a profile and take a closer look at exactly what data is available. So let's start off with the industry financial profile. All you have to do is click on Start Researching. And from here, you actually go through a process of setting the parameters to create a custom profile based on your specific needs. So this is something that I mentioned early in the presentation. One of the things we're known for is that we do not uh, publish pre-made reports. So it's not like some of the other resources where once or twice a year we release a new version or updated version of these industry profiles um, that you can just go and download a version of. None of these reports, or I should say profiles, are actually pre-made yet. So you go through, set parameters, the database is going to go out, find firms that fall within those parameters and develop the profile based off those selections. So let's go ahead and go through and make these selections and pull up one of these financial profiles. So the first selection is always industry. As I mentioned, Bizminer has developed a proprietary extended NAICS code system, which allows you to drill down into very niche industries. I want to first show you an example by typing in 7722511. This is the 6-digit code for restaurants, or I should say full service restaurants. So typically when you're doing industry research, you would only have the option for maybe full service restaurants or limited service, maybe a couple of other ones in there. But you can see with Bizminer what we do by extending these NAICS codes with decimal points and breaking it down. So you can get down into Chinese restaurants, Italian restaurants, mobile food trucks, steakhouses, coffee shops, brew pubs. So what this allows you to do is create an industry peer group that really closely relates to your client and the business that you're working with. That way you're getting more accurate benchmarks during your valuation work. And what I did is I typed in one of those NAICS codes, but you can also do what's called a drill down, which starts at the sector level and then drills down within that. And you can search by keyword. So I'm going to type in remodel because one of the handouts that was provided to you today for this presentation was a sample industry financial profile that was provided to you in both PDF and CSV format. And so I'm going to recreate that. That way, what we're looking at is also the handout that you received. So we're going to go with residential remodelers. And you can even see with this one how you can drill down into kitchen and bath remodeling, closet design and remodeling. But we'll go with the overall residential remodelers. Next, you can select the market area. So as you may recall, one of the things we're known for is allowing you to drill down into local markets. So with this drop down, you can select US, state, and if you select a state, it will show counties within that state. And that's also something I want to point out. We're known for our granularity, but it's really up to you. So you could do like residential remodelers in, let's say, Springfield, Missouri, and get very granular with your selections, or you could do the construction industry in the US. So you can say as broad or get as specific as you need to be. It's all just depends on the specific needs of you and or the client that you're working with. I believe the sample that was provided to you was for Missouri. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And you can see once I select that state, some of the metros that come up within it. Next, we have sales class, which is also known as a revenue range. We have 4 aggregate ones. So there's industry-wide. It's going to be the entire industry, small, medium, or large. And if you click on small, medium, or large, you do get a further breakdown within that. I believe the sample that was provided to you was for 1 to 2.5 million. So let's go ahead and select that. And you can see when I make selections, the database is um, going through calculations. So this is like a loading screen. It's going out and making sure we're really figuring out how many firms are in that industry, market area, and sales class that were selected. So it shows you how many firms are analyzed and the year-end average revenue of those firms. I do want to point out that the structure and time series, they are optional in terms of selecting them. With structure, there's a second option called sole proprietorship. So that's only going to analyze sole proprietorships within that industry. And time series allows you to choose a 3 or a 5-year profile. I do want to also point out very quickly that we have what's called legacy years. So this standard 5-year report currently goes back to 2018, but you do have the option of adding legacy years. Now, depending on the industry that you select, they can go all the way back to 2001. However, they are only available at the US level. So if I go back here and choose all US, we can see this option down here, add legacy years. So, super important with business valuations. Sometimes you need to do a valuation for a certain point in time. If that time is prior to 2018, that year is not going to be included in our standard 5-year report, and you'd want to add these legacy years onto the profile. So if you need these, in this particular case, it's 2007 through 2017, you would click that checkbox. Now, when we access this, the standard 5-year profile would download, and those legacy years would be in a separate profile that you can find down here under My Data and Profiles. We can take a closer look at that if anybody needs to or wants to, but for now, let's go back, change our selection back to Missouri, and access this sample profile. All right, let's click Access Now. And while this downloads, it will take a minute to download because, as I said, it's not pre-made. So it's going through and making the calculations. As this downloads, I'm going to jump back, see if we have any questions coming in. It doesn't look like any questions so far. All right, let's hop back to the financial profile. Looks like it is downloaded. So over on the left are the different sections of the report. The very first section just kind of talks about Bizminer, our methodology, quality control. There's a glossary for all the data points. And there is also insight into the data sources. So as I mentioned earlier, we get information from both public and private statistical sources. It's actually about 15 different sources that we're gathering raw data from before we kind of clean it, analyze it, and develop these profiles from it. The next area talks about the industry peer group. So how many firms are analyzed, what industry was selected, and shows the hierarchy that it goes through. And it also gives some definitions and talks about the ratio categories that'll be analyzed. Now, the main aspect of this report is going to be the financials and the ratios that we provide. So what you're getting with this is an industry average profit and loss statement. So as you can see right now, it's 2018 through 2023 Q2. We're about to update it to year end 2023. So every summer we do an update to the year end of the prior year. So it'd be 2023. And this winter we'll update it to Q2 2024. And this is a trailing 12 months. So all of these are 12 months. As you can see, very, very detailed. So we're known for the granularity of our data. There's about 24 line items here. So you're not just getting, 8 to 10 standard P&L line items. You're getting a good breakdown of things like officers' comp, salary and wages, rent, EBITDA, operating income, and one that is always important to valuation professionals, discretionary owner earnings. Now, this information will come in percentage and dollars. There's also some charts to visually show some of the data. And there's a little bit of narrative over on the right, which will point out some of the trends that we might be picking up on. Next, we have the industry average balance sheet. This has 16 line items, comes in percentage and dollars, as well as some charts. And the sources and uses of funds table, which is similar to a cash flow. The next section of this report is the financial ratios. We developed 36 industry ratios that are separated out into 4 different categories. So we have ratios for cash flow solvency, profitability, efficiency, and debt risk. And the final section is valuation multiples. As I mentioned earlier, these valuation multiples are developed from the deal stats database. What we've done is developed sales and earnings multiples for 4 different sales groups. So basically small, medium, large businesses, and an industry-wide group. We've also developed the quartile ranges. So for example, with the sales multiple, you can get the Q1, median Q3, or in other words, the low, medium, and high multiple. So this is the online version of the report, or I should say the in-app version of the report. But you can also export this information in 2 different formats. The first is a PDF file. So let me get that generated. And I'm going to switch to this tab. All right, so this is the financial profile in the PDF format. So same information, just laid out into a nicely formatted PDF file that you can provide to clients or integrate into a valuation report. And probably even more importantly, we have the CSV download. So we'll get this downloaded and pulled up. This is the most used by our valuation professionals because, as I'm sure all of you know, valuation professionals usually have their own model and workflow that they use for their business valuation work. So being able to export this information into a CSV file really allows them to easily integrate it into whatever valuation model and workflow they already have going on. I will also point out, so I don't think I can share the CSV because I'm only sharing specific tabs within Chrome, but that's one of the handouts that you've received. So feel free to pull up that CSV version of the sample report that you have there as a handout. But the other thing I want to point out before we move on to a couple of the other products that we have is that the financial profile keeps a consistent format and provides consistent metrics across industry segments. What I mean by that is currently we're looking at a report for residential remodelers in Missouri with sales between 1 to 2.5 million. But if you were to pull a financial profile for, let's say, restaurants in Florida with sales between 500,000 and a million, it's still going to provide you with these same metrics. So consistent profit and loss, balance sheet, the same ratios. That way you can easily integrate it into a valuation model that you have. And the same with the CSV export. So it keeps a consistent format. You know that the current ratio is always going to be in the same row and the same column that it always is. And that way you can really start to automate some of this work.